And we continue at 1:06 in the afternoon on the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wings in Culver City.
John, as you know, we take requests. If you want an MP3 of any of the drops you listen to on this show, I'll email them to you. Just tell me what you wanted. JohnnyDon'tLikeShow@gmail.com. Jim writes in, and he wants a twofer. He wants the restaurant owner from yesterday.
Give me the foot. I'm hungry.
And Christina Gonzalez asking the most leading question ever.
Do you feel safe driving Metro?
I think that one was played when I was on vacation.
It was a classic.
Do you feel safe driving Metro?
800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. We have spent a lot of time on this program talking about California's insurance crisis, and nowhere is that crisis being felt more acutely than in Pacific Palisades, Malibu, and Altadena, where a number of Californians lost their homes to fire, and now they're living through the nightmare of trying to put their lives back together and get what's owed to them from their insurance companies. In many cases, many homeowners are having their claims denied by their own insurance companies. Not just the FAIR plan, although the FAIR plan is anything but fair. When these homeowners feel that their companies are not fulfilling their obligations as written in their contracts, go to the California Department of Insurance and ask the insurance commissioner to lean on these companies to fulfill their obligations. Many of them have the proverbial door slammed right in their face. When they go to their member of the state legislature and try to get their member to lean on the California Department of Insurance to do their job, those members have doors slammed in their faces. Many of them have gotten to the point to where they don't know what to do. There's an organization out there who is representing many of these frustrated homeowners, and they are the Extreme Weather Survivors. Joining us right now is the co-founder and co-executive director of Extreme Weather Survivors, Chris Kocher. Chris, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me.
Can you describe just exactly what your organization does and the frustrations that are being experienced right now by your members?
Yeah, well, Extreme Weather Survivors, we are a nationwide community of people who have been directly impacted by disasters like the fires that you mentioned in Eaton and Palisades. We connect people to past fire survivors to learn how to recover from disasters more equitably, connect people to mental health resources, but also help people advocate for the resources that they are entitled to, like what you're seeing with the insurance rate hikes in California. And, you know, the folks that we work with, hundreds and hundreds of survivors all across Los Angeles, are simply just asking for what they are entitled to. They've been paying their premiums for year after year. In some cases, some of these folks have been paying premiums for decades. And they are looking to have their premiums and their insurance payments honored. You know, they're dealing with, adjuster shuffle. They're dealing with reasonable expenses being denied. And we're working with them to make sure that their voices are carried, as you said, to the legislature, to Commissioner Lara, to make sure that as these rate hikes are being considered, the people who can do something about this, Commissioner Lara, is stepping in and making sure that he is holding the insurers accountable.
It seems like most of the requests that I have seen, and maybe you see it differently, from these homeowners who have lost everything is, I have a contract with my insurance company. The contract says if a disaster like this were to happen, this is what I am owed. Clearly, the insurance company do not want to pay them that because many of them claim financial hardship and they're lowballing everyone. But the homeowner says, look, I'm not asking for anything special. I just want my contract enforced. And if the company isn't going to do it, someone in the government has to force them the way you would force someone to abide by any contract. Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. And you said that one of the folks we work with, Wendy, she said use exactly that language. She isn't asking for special treatment, just the support from the insurers that she was promised after years of paying premiums. And so that's what we are doing. We're working with these folks to try to make sure that their stories are heard by the people who can step in. Commissioner Lara just passed an emergency rate hike. It's going into effect this week. Right after, even before, the ink was dried on that request, State Farm turned around and made an additional request, right? This is adding to people's unimaginable trauma. They've lost their homes. They've lost their businesses. They're dealing with toxic chemicals in their home. And to be fighting tooth and nail with insurers and their elected officials to get what they are owed isn't right, and this is something, like I said, we're nationwide, and this is something that we see not just in California, but across the country. People are dealing with, storms and fires that are happening with more frequency, with more severity. The rates keep going up. Insurers are getting worse. And the homeowners and the business owners are the ones that are left paying the tab. And it's really not fair. And this insurance crisis is making the climate crisis really a kitchen table issue for folks all across the country. And everyone, the folks that we talk to, the survivors that we talk to, say to us, isn't fair that the people who helped cause this help chip in to make bear some of this cost.
What's weird to me is that if you look at certain industries and you look at the regulation of certain industries, you talk to anyone who works in the airline industry, and I don't know the specifics of the regulations, but let's say a flight is canceled because of staffing issues and someone gets stuck in some city that's not their final destination. The government says you have to pay for lodging. You have to give them vouchers for food. You have to provide them with a new flight, X, Y, and Z, whatever it is. And if they don't abide by those regulations to the letter, then they could get fined by the government, and the Department of Transportation will be on them like white on rice. Yet you look at other industries and regulation that pertain to them, like the insurance industry in California, they break all the rules, and it's not like what happens to the airlines. It's like, okay, well, that's where the negotiation starts, and we'll see what we can do. Why do you think it's so different from other industries, like, say, the airline industry?
Well, I think insurers have a lot of power. And, you talked about, basic claims being denied. I mean, one of the most egregious that I heard was a dad talking about trying to get, diapers that he was buying for his newborn child. Those claims are being denied. So you're right. I mean, this is what we're seeing. Claims, the most basic claims are being denied, being lowballed. And, they count on people being separated, right? And that's why we are working with, survivors all across Eaton and Palisades and local groups like the Eaton Fire Survivors Network and other organizations to come together to make sure that people understand that this is systemic. It's happening across the board. Survivors are being lowballed. What they are entitled to, like you said, this isn't special treatment. They're asking for what they're entitled to. And we're going to make sure that the elected officials, and in particular Commissioner Lara, who has the power here to step in ahead of the October rate hike hearing and compel State Farm and other bad actors, insurers in California, to take action and make sure that the survivors that we work with and support are getting what they are entitled to, which is it's a basic request, right?
We're speaking with Chris Kocher, who you can follow on X at Chris J. Kocher, and get him online at extremeweathersurvivors.org. You mentioned the rate hikes that State Farm petitioned the California Department of Insurance for and were granted. Let's talk about that process for a second, because
Sure.
Commissioner Lara came out before the hearing ever took place and said that he would give them the rate hike, although he would force them to participate in the hearing in Oakland. State Farm went before the judge in Oakland, made their case. That case was described by many people in the room as being incomplete. The judge said, okay, fine, we'll give you the rate hike. Lara approved it. Almost a week later, State Farm came out and said, we need another rate hike. What do you make of the fact that he indicated before the hearing ever took place that he was going to approve it, and then he didn't bother to attend the hearing himself?
Yeah, well, I think it adds insult to injury, right? You have within that same day, right, the rate hike that was recommended by that court hearing was approved by Commissioner Lara. Like you said, less than a week later, an additional rate hike is passed, and he has the regulatory ability to compel State Farm and other bad actor insurers to take action and make sure that survivors are being paid out. And he's falling short of that duty. And so that's why, like I said, we're working with survivors all across the city to make sure that those stories are heard and that people understand that this isn't just a one-off. This is something that people are across the board dealing with. The lowball efforts, the lack of toxicity testing, putting people with children and grandparents in homes that are unsafe, forcing people to deal with lowball efforts. And so, I think the way that you fight that is by making sure that these stories are heard and making sure that the average Californian understands that this is something that is happening across the board. And so that's why we think it's so important that people continue to share their stories, they continue to speak out, they continue as these rate hikes are coming in, sharing that information so people understand as my claim is being denied, my rate hikes are being increased, which is absurd. And also that people, like I said, understand that this isn't just limited to California. And this is something that people all across the country are dealing with as these disasters are getting, more severe, more frequent. We have no plan to solve this, and we really need our elected officials to step up and take action and tell us what the plan is to help make survivors whole after they've been paying these premiums for decades.
Ricardo Lara recently addressed an audience in Sacramento where he was asked about essentially being hated by homeowners, by ratepayers, by fire victims over his refusal to attend that hearing and him giving State Farm the ability to raise rates without requiring them to fulfill their contracts with victims. Here is what he said about those criticisms.
And you know what? This may be the hardest work that I do as an elected official, as an insurance commissioner, and I may be criticized and dragged through the mud for it and get my wig snatched, as the gay guys say, and dragged through every corner of this state. And I might end up being the most unelectable person, but I don't care, because this is going to be the most meaningful work that I do for the state of California.
You don't hear politicians say that often. He's aware that you guys don't like him, and he doesn't care.
Well, what I would say is I appreciate that he feels like he is in a difficult place doing difficult work. But the folks that we work with, like Wendy, her home was contaminated with asbestos, and yet State Farm has refused to replace or allow the safe disposal of furniture and belongings. She's living on a fixed income. She's buried in debt. She's maxing out her credit cards. So I think those are the people that are really having a hardship now. And that's why we are standing with them, listening with them, helping them connect with each other and making sure their stories are heard. So as hard as he feels he has it, we want to make sure that he understands what Californians are really going through, to understand just what is at stake and to use that regulatory power that he has ahead of the hearing in October to compel State Farm to take action.
Have you been able to get FaceTime with him? And I say that because he essentially did no media for a very long time. We would put in interview requests as a show that's on in San Francisco and LA. We covered this subject probably as closely as any other program in the state. He doesn't respond to our emails. When people in other shops here in Los Angeles or the Bay Area put in requests for him, generally speaking, what they do is they politely decline or they just don't respond at all. It wasn't until the fires took place where I guess he felt the compulsion to do some media, but it's extremely limited. We know that victims that we have heard from on this program and in other forums say that they've tried to get FaceTime. They can't get FaceTime with him. He's very difficult to get a hold of. We know that there have been stories out about him going on a lot of these international junkets where he's going to Bermuda or he's going to Hawaii or he's going to South America or Asia to meet with insurance industry executives or other groups that he feels the need to meet with at these exotic locations. Have you had the ability to meet with him face to face?
I have, and what I can, and I first of all, I really appreciate you having me on to talk about this, and like you said, continuing to raise awareness about this. These are the voices that he will listen to when this is being amplified. But I certainly agree with you that he has not given enough attention to the stories. We would love nothing more than for him to meet directly with, in person, with some of the people who are dealing with some of the fallout from the fires and the lack of payment from the insurance companies, to understand just how dire the situation is for so many people, whether they've been able to start the long and traumatic process of rebuilding and recovering depends on what insurance company they have and what the coverage they have, right? And so he really has incredible power here. And I think, as any elected official, it's, their responsibility to listen to the people who have been most harmed, to bring their voices into the conversation, give them a seat at the table, and make sure that he is bearing witness to what they've been through and carrying their voices, their stories forward through this process.
Well, and obviously the main issue here is these people want to get their lives back together. And
Absolutely.
If the government does what the government is supposed to do, to just, again, nothing special, but just efficient at what they're supposed to do and what these people are entitled to, you can help them get their lives back together faster rather than slower. And when President Trump was here demanding that all of this happen as fast as possible, the mayor promised that it would happen lickety-split. But as soon as he left, she said, well, it's going to take years, probably several years, for these people to rebuild. Given everything that you've seen so far and everything you've heard from these victims so far and everything that you're seeing right now from the regulations at the city level, the state level, and what you're seeing from the insurance companies, which scenario do you think is more likely? Do you think a lot of these people are going to get back into a home and some sort of normal life soon, or do you think this is a process that's going to go on for years?
I think it's certainly a process that's going to take time. And I think, the first step is helping these folks obtain the proceeds that they're entitled to. They can't do anything until that happens. And so that's why we are so committed to making sure that we stand with these families and make sure that these payouts that they are entitled to are received, so that they can start that process of rebuilding. We'll be with them through this. We'll be with them after that, making sure that we're fighting for an equitable recovery. And like I said before, this is something that we have seen not just in California. We were in North Carolina last fall after the hurricanes there in the mountains of North Carolina, unprecedented 40 inches of rain from a hurricane in the mountains of North Carolina. So this is something that is coming for families all across the country. It's not just, in the states that are, have been historically more prone to disasters. With the change in climate, these disasters are happening more frequently. And that's what, survivors say to us, we can't bear this on our own. We need the insurers to step up and pay out the proceeds that they're entitled to. And shouldn't those most responsible for climate change, shouldn't they also chip in to help us bear some of this cost?
Well, we still don't know the start or the cause of these fires here in Southern California. I guess the most recent suggestion or the most recent theory is that it was fireworks that were launched on New Year's that may not have been put out entirely. So we're still trying to figure that out. But Chris, thanks so much for stopping by. He is the co-founder and co-executive director of Extreme Weather Survivors. You can get him online at extremeweathersurvivors.org and follow him on X at Chris J. Kocher. Chris, thanks so much for stopping by.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate it. And thank you for continuing to shine a spotlight on these really important stories. Really appreciate it.
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, now that we've hit the halfway point of today's show, if you want to continue listening to us after we sign off at 3, that's easy to do.
All you got to do is search for The John Phillips Show wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's the Apple Podcasts app, iHeart, Spotify. Search for The John Phillips Show. Hit subscribe. You can download all the episodes. You could do what George Gascon does to himself in the middle of the night.
Do a Google on YouTube.
Search for The John Phillips Show on YouTube. Hit subscribe and hit like on every episode that you see. It helps us out with the algorithm. But the greatest thing about a podcast, you can listen to these things whenever you want, whether you're having breakfast, lunch, or dinner.
Give me the foot. I'm hungry.
And right now it's time to open up the California Crime Blotter.
If the cashier is dummy.
Questions?
And Randy, the first edition takes us to the San Fernando Valley.
A business owner in Granada Hills had his windows smashed, so he replaced them with unsmashable windows. And what do the jackasses do? They keep trying to throw rocks at it.
Uh-oh.
For more, here is KCAL.
A Granada Hills business says it's been a repeat target of vandals.
Sounds like a war zone.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like rocks. That sounds like machine gun fire.
Rocks left dents in the shatterproof glass, just installed after a vandalism incident last month. The owner tells our Lauren Posen he's not letting it happen a third time.
It's one hell of a boulder.
It sounds like it.
Watch as these two vandals took turns launching heavy rocks at Moto Styles Hobby Shop in Granada Hills. The impact is so strong, it shakes the entire...
This is the kind of behavior that you get when people know that there's very little consequences.
I wonder if they're aware that Gascon is gone.
They might not be.
The impact is so strong, it shakes the entire storefront.
When they were tossing a huge, almost 20-pound boulder, it fly back at them. So they saw that they cannot do anything. They ran back to the car. There was a driver that took them out. So it was like overall 3 people, a driver and 2 criminals.
This is the first time vandals have targeted owner Art Cohen.
What were they going to get inside a hobby shop?
I don't know. But they seemed determined to break that window again.
This is the first time vandals have targeted owner Art Cohen. About a month ago, a man walked up to a store with a crowbar, smashed both front windows, and took off. Cohen didn't wait and swapped out the regular glass for bulletproof panes. Still,
How much did that set him back?
Oh, that had to cost a fortune.
Cohen didn't wait and swapped out the regular glass for bulletproof panes. Still, the thieves came back Friday night.
Sometimes we catch actually people that come here and try to steal stuff, and it's happened a lot. But this case, no, this is not a case of someone want to come and steal.
He thinks it's a different crew, but says there's similarities.
He broke the door, the 2 big glass windows, and ran away. The same as those guys. They came, they tossed the rocks into the window. First, they came and confirmed that it's a window, and they're not that smart. They should see by the movement that it's not a real glass. And then they got and they tossed stuff at it, and they gave away immediately, and they drove off.
Now, it sounds like the boulders were bouncing back at them like it was on a trampoline or something.
Yes.
Cohen says he's had enough and warns anyone planning to return to vandalize the store, he is ready and watching.
Those guys don't know that they get into a hornet nest because I am former Special Forces.
Oh, my.
Don't mess with them.
They are done. As soon as they decided to keep getting me as a target, I see it as threat to my life and to my family's life.
In Granada Hills, Lauren Posen, KCAL News.
Don't mess with this guy.
No, it sounds like he's ready for action. All right, Randy, it's time to reopen the blotter.
If the cashier is dummy.
Questions?
And the next edition takes us to OJ's old stomping grounds.
Nope, not that Brentwood.
Oh.
The one in Northern California.
Well, that's where OJ's from originally.
This is out near Concord in a town called Brentwood where a smoke shop got robbed. Here's NBC Bay Area.
The owner of a smoke shop in Brentwood is angry and shaken up after his store was hit by robbers in the middle of the day. This is the second time in a month.
By the way, you know how it's not L.A. Brentwood? I guarantee you there's no smoke shops in Brentwood.
No, they would never allow that in that neighborhood.
The amount it costs to rent out or lease a business on Sunset Boulevard in Brentwood, California, there's no way someone's paying that rent by selling bongs and cigarettes.
No, the Mezzaluna couldn't even stay in business in that Brentwood.
The owner of a smoke shop in Brentwood is angry and shaken up after his store was hit by robbers in the middle of the day. This is the second time in a month.
Oh, my.
That's a lot.
His store has been targeted.
But this time, the robbers were more brazen and more dangerous. NBC Bears' Jody Hernandez reports it was captured all on video, so you'll be able to see it.
It scared us, it scared the girl, and, it scared my wife, everybody, and it scared my customer.
Gary Singh is...
By the way, if you were curious, it's not too far from Oakland.
A hop, skip, and a jump.
And it scared my customer.
It's in between Oakland and Stockton. That's where Brentwood is.
I can't believe they're treating an honest businessman like this way. I mean, this man's just trying to pay his bills. He's trying to pay his taxes. He's trying to give people lung cancer. I mean, come on.
Usually, I mean, you always feel bad for the victim of any crime, especially a robbery. But you always hear like their life story, and it's like, I spent my whole life working through school, and my family, we all were, in this business together. How many people grew up thinking that they wanted to sell cigarettes for a living?
Not many outside of North Carolina.
It scared us, it scared the girl, and, it scared my wife, everybody, so... And it scared my customer.
Gary Singh is rattled after a brazen daytime robbery at his Brentwood smoke shop. 4 masked men wearing hoodies came into the store at about noon yesterday. Singh's niece was working and grabbed a large stick, pushing the men out of the store.
Boy, everyone's ready for action these days.
People have had enough.
That's when they threatened her with a gun.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, that stick's not going to help you then.
They said, if we have a gun, we can shoot you.
One of the men fired a gun into the air, hitting the next door business.
Oh, God.
This is the middle of the day.
Wait, if you're trying to shoot a warning shot into the air, how do you accidentally hit the neighboring business?
Because you're a bad shot.
Okay. Even bad shots understand the difference between vertical and horizontal.
Singh's niece wisely stopped fighting back.
She dropped the giant stick.
Yeah, that was a good idea.
The men ran back in and cleared the shelves and the back storage room, filling their loot bags with cartons of cigarettes before running out and taking off in a getaway car.
We've seen this story over and over again, whether it's San Francisco at Cigarettes Cheaper, which is the greatest name of a cigarette store ever, or in Oakland at every single gas station and 7-Eleven. But who are the people that are buying these stolen cigarettes in the Mission in San Francisco?
And I love the fact that whenever we talk about this kind of crime, retail theft, all we hear from the defenders is, well, they're just trying to feed their starving families. Well, apparently starving families eat cigarettes.
It is supposed to make you less hungry.
It is an appetite suppressant, yes.
I'm blown away that that's happened. I'm blown away at this time of the day, and the fact that they're stuck in a position like this is just ridiculous.
The store was just burglarized about a month ago. That time, the thieves used a car to break through the front windows, and once again...
I wonder if it was a Kia.
Of course it was a Kia.
Filled their bags up with cartons of cigarettes. Customers...
At what point do you realize this might not be the best line of work?
Yeah, that may not be the best industry, and that may not be the best zip code.
Customers say they just can't believe it.
This is like a neighborhood store, it's even though it's a smoke shop, it's a neighborhood smoke shop, and you got a lot of...
What does that mean?
I don't know.
You think of a neighborhood store, you think of maybe like a mini mart where some people go to buy cereal. This is just a place to buy cigarettes and bongs.
Apparently, it's the town Cracker Barrel.
This is like a neighborhood store, it's even though it's a smoke shop, it's a neighborhood smoke shop, and you got a lot of customers that have been coming here for years. And
give me some zigzags.
That's Bob over there. He smokes unfiltereds.
Give me a package of blunts back there so I can hollow out the tobacco and put weed in it.
His granddad used to shop here.
And these are just like the salt of the earth people. They're really, really good, American citizens.
My opinion is that the PD needs to get serious on maintaining enforcement and being visible and not just putting words to it.
You can argue that, yes, there's no way you're going to get a response time that's going to deal with you crash a Kia, you're in and out in 3 minutes in the middle of the night. But if you got 4 guys in ski masks shooting off a gun in the middle of the day, you got to have a response to be able to take that down.
Well, they didn't shoot it off into the air. They shot it into the neighboring business, which means people who were shopping at whatever's next door to the smoke shop had bullets flying through the wall.
To make matters even worse, thieves also targeted Singh's liquor store in Antioch last month. The 3 break-ins have totaled tens of thousands of dollars in losses, and none of it is covered by insurance.
What?
So he has a smoke shop and a liquor store?
And none of them have insurance.
If he has a gun shop, then he could be the ATF, alcohol, tobacco, firearms.
and none of it is covered by insurance.
Because I'm living on this business, so I was putting my family, my kids, they go to university school. So I want to make sure I can support my kid, everybody.
Police say...
Wait a second. So he could send his kid to college, he stopped paying his insurance premiums?
Yeah, that's not a good idea.
Police say smoke shop break-ins are happening all across the region. Concord police say they've had 3 burglaries just last week, all targeting cigarettes.
Hopefully they can come back. It's getting worse, and now it's getting more worse.
Singh says he hopes police can catch the criminals and put a stop to the smoke shop thefts. In Brentwood, Jody Hernandez, NBC Bay Area News.
I think of all the burglary stories we've done this year, the vast majority of them have been at smoke shops or convenience stores that sell cigarettes. Cigarettes have been involved more often than not.
Okay, and even though we hate the insurance companies and we hate the insurance commissioner, you still have to pay your premiums. Because if a Kia comes driving through your front wall, that's a full-on construction project. That's not buying a new window or buying a new door. That is, you need to have people over in hard hats. That's got to be, what, a $30,000 minimum problem?
It's a pretty big one.
Yeah. You want the insurance company to cover that. You don't want to be on the hook to pay for a Kia or a Hyundai coming through your wall. Not to mention them cleaning you out once they come through the wall. And Randy, it's time to reopen the California Crime Blotter.
If the cashier is dummy.
Questions?
And we're all in for a treat because this edition is an Ed Lascos edition.
And it's on like Donkey Kong.
Jackasses are stealing catalytic converters at 6 a.m. on a Sunday in the Santa Clarita Valley in Southern California. And one woman had the bright idea to scream out, "Hey, my husband has a gun."
Aren't those kids supposed to be in church?
For more, here is Fox 11 and Ed Lascos.
The L.A. County Sheriff's Department is handling the investigation on this. Up to a half dozen vehicles targeted and hit over just an hour span in the early morning of Sunday during that long holiday weekend. And you would think the crooks would cover their tracks under the cover of darkness. Strike when it's dark? Think again.
You know you always want the catchphrase, and then you get the catchphrase, and you're just happy.
You just feel completely content.
He said the thing.
Think again. Watch. They pull up, spot their target, and it's on right in broad daylight. It makes no difference.
Again, not a bad part of town.
My wife is in front of the house having her morning coffee, and these people just drive up and think they could just... take what's not theirs.
And in broad daylight.
Broad daylight.
They're not scared about doing their dirty work in broad daylight, but they are scared of this.
I called out for my husband because he was sound asleep upstairs. I was like, "Babe, they're after your truck or the van, get the gun, come down quick." And I...
Get the gun!
She is not fooling around.
The thing is, we have seen stories, including, I think it was just a few months ago in Englewood, where a guy walked up upon people stealing catalytic converters in the middle of the day. I think it was an early morning, and he tried to intervene, and he got shot to death.
Yeah, you want to be careful with these people because they're probably professional criminals.
I think I startled them. One of the guys popped his head out, looked directly at me.
And look how fast they hightail it after hearing there's a gun, but the damage already done.
Hey, that rhymed.
He could be mayor.
I'd vote for him.
After hearing there's a gun, but the damage already done. The catalytic converter from this work van is long gone, but the safety concerns, they're still here.
I'm worried about the safety of my family, If I'm at work, is that going to happen again? The fact that she was in front of the house and she had the confrontation with them, it's a very scary feeling.
This security video from early Sunday morning, a long holiday weekend, but there's no holiday for crumbs like this.
There's that word that we like so much.
I really like crumbs.
They had already hit 5 people before they hit us. So they had started like 6:45 in the morning in this neighborhood, and they were just cruising down and looking at all the possible cars that they could steal the catalytic converters from.
That's the sound of the catalytic crooks in action as the L.A. County Sheriff's Department.
That's quite a loud saw for 6 a.m. on a quiet street.
That's when you give 0 Fs.
As the L.A. County Sheriff's Department and LAPD, both with their task forces, all trying to shut down this crime wave, while all the innocent victims are caught right in the middle.
Well, it's difficult for the LAPD when you have members of the LA City Council that say crap like this.
Let's criminalize catalytic converters. Let's criminalize copper.
The electeds do not want the cops arresting them for doing this.
You remember, I think it was 2 years ago, when John Lee of the LA City Council was putting forth an ordinance to increase the penalties for being caught with catalytic converters. And it was Ulysses Hernandez who said, this would criminalize my community.
And which community is she talking about? Because I look at it as a community of criminals.
Where does it balance out? Where is our state stepping up and protecting the citizens that are paying and law abiding? And I think that's where my frustration is right now.
And a little button to that, state law tried to crack down on catalytic converter theft last year. And do you know what they did, Johnny?
What's that?
This is how the California legislature cracked down on catalytic converter theft. They made it so if you have more than 8 catalytic converters on you, then we want to know where they came from.
Great. Sounds like they're right on top of that.
If you have 7, that's no big deal.
Because normal people have 7 catalytic converters in the back of their van.